Hi everyone, welcome back to this educational channel on biology. I'm teacher Janet and today we'll be discussing a Form 5 topic called Chapter 10 Environmental Sustainability. So these are two big words, but not to worry, we'll find out more as we go along, right? So the subtopic is 10.1 Threats to the Environment, and we'll be discussing climate change. Now, in October last year, WHO, the World Health Organization, had stated that the burning of fossil fuels is killing humanity, is killing mankind, and also that climate change is the biggest health threat. Okay, that is biggest health threat to humanity. That is apart from COVID-19, I suppose. Okay, so this is an important environmental issue that we have to discuss. Now, this topic is often asked. Environmental issues are often tested in the essay section. Okay, so you have to know all about it in case it comes out in bahagian C where you have to answer the question on it. All right. Now, I've included an SPM forecast question for you at the end of this video, which you can try. Right, class, just to inform you, the SPM forecast question on this chapter, environmental sustainability, has been put in the next video so that this video is not too long. All right. So after viewing this video and understanding the concepts, you can try the forecast question, which I will be uploading. It's ready, except that it will be in the next video. All right. I shifted it to the next video so that you can also study the techniques of answering this type of questions. The learning standards for today's lesson are as follows. Describe the meaning of environmental sustainability, and 2, analyze threats to the environment, such as climate change, deforestation, pollution, loss of biodiversity, human population explosion, global warming, and eutrophication, which are all caused by human activities, right? For a start, we will discuss climate change. We'll find out what climate change is, what are the sources and causes, also the effects, and then ways to prevent or reduce this condition or environmental issue. Right, so first of all, let's look at the concept map for this topic, Chapter 10, Environmental Sustainability. So there are 4 main parts to it. Firstly, threats to the environment. Secondly, preservation, conservation, and restoration of ecosystems. Thirdly, practices in environmental sustainability. And fourthly, green technology, which is a new section here, right? So the whole topic is important for essay and structured questions, apart from objective questions, right? And in the old syllabus, usually it will come out as in the form of an essay question, right? So we have to be prepared for it, in case it comes out in bahagian C of paper 2, which is a compulsory question for you to do, right? So that's the reason why I'm going to discuss this topic, and I will discuss the definition of environmental sustainability in this video, and also the first threat, which is climate change. All right. Now, firstly, we're going to discuss the definition of environmental sustainability. But before that, let's explain the necessity for environmental sustainability, which is environmental sustainability. Simply put, is protection of the environment, conservation, and the restoration of the environment, all right, to be in a good condition, okay, for a long period of time, not just for this generation, but for the coming or future generations. So in the world today, rapid advancements in technology have caused a high rate of development and economic growth beyond what our Earth's natural resources can sustain. For example, in the building of new townships and construction of factories, right? Okay, so these are examples of development. Now, secondly, the rapid increase in human population increases the demands and needs of humans, which is very true. So our human population is growing at an exponential rate today, very fast rate, right? And we need a lot of things. We need housing, we need transportation, and also we need to eat, right? And also to use water, drink water, and so forth. So This may be in conflict with the need to conserve the environment. For example, in increased usage of plastic products which pollute the environment. Okay, so in the process of meeting the needs, our needs, the needs of humans, we have begun to use a lot of these plastic products. Okay, and the increased usage of these plastic products which are not recycled, for example, which cannot be recycled. Some of them cannot be recycled. And then the throwing away of these products, all right, into on land or in the seas, it has polluted the environment and caused a lot of problems, environmental problems. So this has caused environmental problems due to our needs, the increase in population and the demands and needs of humans. Examples are global warming, habitat destruction, pollution. And to reduce these problems, we need to invest, we need to carry out more sustainable development practices, all right, in order to preserve the environment. We can do that. We can carry on with development and still protect and preserve the environment. Okay. The first learning outcome is to describe the meaning of this term, environmental sustainability. So try and say this word. Okay, environmental sustainability. Now the definition must be memorized. So it means an environmental condition that remains the same. That means when the environment is maintained in a good condition, all right, without any reduction or depletion of natural resources. So our natural resources include water, fossil fuels such as petroleum, coal, and also the forests. All these are our natural resources. So there should be no reduction or depletion in this. Okay, and we should protect the forest so that we don't damage it or destroy it through deforestation. Okay, and even if the trees are chopped down, they must be replanted as soon as possible. With an assured quality of the surrounding environment, all right, that means the environment should be kept in good quality for a long period of time, not just for our generation, but for the generations to come, okay, for the future generations. So simply put, environmental sustainability means an environmental condition that is protected, for a long period of time, to be in a good condition, Now, examples of practices used in sustainable development are usage of wind energy and solar energy, which we call renewable energy. Crop rotation is to ensure the fertility of the soil is maintained. Recycling, like recycling waste products like paper, used bottles and glasses, glass bottles, right? Recycling them. Using energy efficient products like the LED bulb, and buildings, the energy efficient buildings, sometimes we can call them the green buildings if they fulfill the criteria. And then using recycled bins to sustain the environment. Okay, now this is a part of recycling. This reduces usage of non-renewable resources. Okay, because when you recycle materials like paper and also glass and aluminium, usually it needs less energy to recycle them and produce new products compared to if you were to produce the products right from scratch, from the raw materials. Okay, because that will entail more burning of fossil fuels like petroleum, and will use up these resources. So in this picture here, you can see the wind turbine, okay, that's used to generate electricity. So when the wind blows, it will turn the turbine, and then this will turn a generator in the building, and then it will generate electricity. Okay, and for the solar panels too, these solar panels capture the solar energy from the sun and then convert it into electrical energy. Okay. Now, recycling in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, we have recycle bins that are put in some housing estates, all right, in places for people to throw their waste products or waste paper, unwanted glass bottles, aluminum cans and plastic bottles into, right? So in Malaysia, we use 3 different colors to differentiate the 3 different bins in which you have to put the substance that you want to be recycled. So blue bin is for paper, brown bin is for glass, and orange bin is for metal and plastic. Please take note that in other countries, the colors may be different. Some countries use the red color bean and yellow colored bean. Okay, but ours are all in the earth colors. All right, neutral colors: blue, brown, and orange. So still on the topic of environmental sustainability, right? What are some benefits that we will obtain if we practice this or ensure that there's environmental sustainability while carrying out development? So environmental sustainability will ensure the current demands or needs of the present age are met without affecting the needs of future generations. Okay, so we save the environment for the future generations too. And these are some of the things that can occur if we take care of our environment. Greenhouse gas emissions will be reduced and there'll be less global warming. All right, so to cut down on this, we have to reduce the burning of fossil fuels as one example. All right, so there'll be less global warming, the temperature of the earth will not be so high. All right, and then pollutants in the air and water will be reduced. So imagine the earth in an unpolluted condition, right, where there's no air pollution and water pollution. Okay, the air and water are clean. So solid waste materials will be reduced. For example, glass bottles and plastic products, plastic bottles, and even unwanted paper which is thrown away. Okay, and even our face masks also, face masks which many people have thrown away and is accumulating in certain places. All this will be reduced, right? And some of these materials can be recycled, right? So natural resources such as forests, as shown here, water sources will be protected and restored. The balance of the ecosystems are maintained. So another benefit is that the forest will be preserved, water sources will be protected, okay, to provide clean water for humans, and also balance of ecosystems are maintained. And you can see here the wildlife will thrive, will live and be able to live in the forest without being threatened, all right, or without facing extinction. Okay, and then the health and well-being of humans and other organisms will also improve because there'll be less air pollution, less water pollution, okay, and so forth. So these are benefits that we can enjoy if we really take care of the environment. Okay, not for ourselves only, but for the future generation. All right, so imagine a world like this where there's environmental sustainability, and there's the use of all these methods to promote environmental sustainability on Earth. You can see the recycle bins here, the wind turbines, and then the solar panels. All right, and maybe all these are green buildings that have features to protect the environment. Okay. Now, what happens if the opposite occurs where environmental sustainability is neglected, as is happening in some parts of the world today? So the good quality of the environment will be disturbed when its sustainability is neglected, and this will cause a global warming, okay, and climate change, where there are droughts and floods, okay, and typhoons, okay, very strong typhoons that cause destruction, right? Now, apart from that, there'll be rising sea levels as is occurring in the world today. Some islands will be like completely submerged later on because of the rising sea levels, right? And then extreme droughts, all right, erosion, soil erosion, loss of forests, all right, and species extinction, where certain animals and plants may die and then become extinct, right? So how would we like to live in a world like this, okay, in which the environment is totally damaged, right? So that's why we need to practice environmental sustainability, also for our own survival, and the survival of the animals and plants around us. And here we see a place where there's a lot of pollution, so people will have to wear masks all the time, and there may be a rise in the respiratory diseases and other diseases. Okay, so this is not what we want for the world. Right, let's find out the threats and then what we can do about it. So what are the threats to the environment nowadays? The threats to the environment are caused by our human activities in the ecosystem. So this cause threats to the environment, ancaman kepada alam persekitaran. For example, such as deforestation that results in the destruction of the environment and has negative impact on life. Okay, examples are deforestation and pollution and so forth. So for example, if we carry out deforestation and destroy the forest, maybe to clear the land for agriculture or to use the logs, the wood for building furniture and for construction, then there will be a negative impact that falls back on us. That is, the soil will be eroded and then there will be landslides and flash floods. Okay, so we have to avoid destroying the environment so that we don't face all these negative effects. So threats to the environment caused by human activities include climate change and global warming, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, eutrophication, pollution, and human population growth explosion. For this video, in this video, we'll be studying climate change and global warming. Okay, so climate change is caused by global warming, and global warming is caused by what? Greenhouse effect. Okay, so we need to find out more about the greenhouse effect. Now, what is the greenhouse effect? So here in A, we see the natural greenhouse effect, okay, which has existed for a long time already, all right, to warm the earth for the survival of organisms, all right. But in recent years, in the past many decades, human activities have caused a stronger greenhouse effect as shown in this second diagram B, all right. So here we see the stronger greenhouse effect caused by human activities. Okay, let's begin with the natural greenhouse effect. All right, so in the past thousands of years, actually this process has been occurring for a long time, right? Sunlight enters the Earth's atmosphere and some of it is used to warm the Earth. So the sunlight enters as UV rays, ultraviolet rays. Then after it has warmed the Earth, some of it will be reflected back into space in the form of infrared rays. Okay, and these infrared rays contain heat, right? Now, in the past, we have a thin layer of greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide, methane, and others. So, because there are less greenhouse gases, a lower concentration of greenhouse gases in the olden days, thus less infrared rays are absorbed by these gases. So, these gases have the effect of absorbing the heat, okay, in the infrared rays and absorbing the rays. Now, because less infrared rays are absorbed compared to the present times, thus more heat escapes into space, okay, in the olden days, and less heat is trapped by the greenhouse gases, and less infrared rays are re-emitted back to Earth. So the greenhouse gases also sort of reflect, re-emit the infrared rays back to Earth, okay, and this can also warm up the Earth. So overall, the Earth is warmed up by the heat from the sun, and thus it is at an optimum temperature that is important for the survival of organisms. All right. So we need this natural greenhouse effect to survive. If not, Earth will be very cold, just like some of the planets around us, and it is not suitable for the survival of organisms. Okay. Now, apart from that, because of the natural greenhouse effect in the past, there's healthy growth of crops and other plants. All right. So that's the ideal situation. The natural greenhouse effect causes the temperature to be at an optimum level for survival of organisms. The global temperature to be at optimum level. But things have changed, all right, because of human activities in the past decades. So there's now a stronger greenhouse effect, meaning that the layer of greenhouse gases here, the orange layer, is thicker now, or there's a higher concentration of greenhouse gases now, due to human activities such as burning of fossil fuels that release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, right? So the same process is still occurring whereby sunlight enters the Earth's atmosphere, okay, and then is reflected back into space as infrared rays. But here is where there's a difference. More infrared rays or heat are now absorbed or trapped by the greenhouse gases, all right, which are at higher concentration, okay, having been increased through human activities. Okay, and then apart from that, more infrared rays are now re-emitted back to Earth by the greenhouse gases, okay, due to the higher concentration of greenhouse gases. So less heat, you can see here, the heat that escapes into space is more in the past, and now it's less, okay. The heat that's trapped is more, and the heat that's emitted back to Earth by the greenhouse gases is small compared to the olden days. Okay, so what is the effect of all this? Well, the Earth's temperature will increase, so global warming will occur. Okay, and then when global warming occurs, it causes climate changes, climate change, which we'll discuss further, right? So now climate change has become the main environmental issue that affects the world. So in the previous slide, we already discussed how the greenhouse effect was caused. So here are the notes for what we have discussed. So climate change is an important topic for the essay section, especially bahagian C, even bahagian C, where it is compulsory to answer the question. Okay, so make sure you're prepared to answer questions on environmental issues. Okay, right, so definition for climate change. It refers to the change in temperature of the earth, rainfall distribution, and drastic changes in winds. All right, so these are all the abiotic factors okay, in the environment: temperature, rainfall, and winds, the changes that occur to them, drastic changes that have occurred, causing floods and droughts everywhere. Okay, so we can recall back in Malaysia also we have floods occurring recently. These changes are the result of the phenomenon called the greenhouse effect. Okay, so let's explain the formation of the greenhouse effect and its positive effects on Earth's organisms. We have discussed this in the previous slide, so I'll just go through quickly. When sunlight enters the atmosphere of the Earth here, some of the light is reflected back from Earth into space as infrared rays, as seen here, this yellow arrow. Okay, so when it enters the Earth, it enters as ultraviolet rays. The sunlight enters as ultraviolet rays, but when it's reflected back to space, is reflected back as infrared rays. B, most of the heat energy in the rays is absorbed or trapped by greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere, thus preventing the infrared rays from being reflected back into space. Okay, so the layer of greenhouse gases trap the heat energy and prevent the infrared rays from escaping back into space. So some of the heat can still escape back into space, but not all. Examples of greenhouse gases are carbon dioxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbon, and nitrogen oxide. So these are the formulas for them. Methane is CH4, chlorofluorocarbon is CFCl3. Nitrogen oxide is actually nitrous oxide, but the textbook uses the term nitrogen oxide. So we will use this term too, because when the examiner marks, they're going to refer to the textbook usually. So nitrogen oxide, but actually the formula is N2O, which is nitrous oxide. That's just for your understanding. Now, benefits. Heat energy that is not reflected back to space will keep the Earth warm at an average temperature for survival of organisms, as it is not too cold and life forms are preserved. So this is the benefit and the advantages of having the greenhouse effect. The temperature of the Earth is maintained for healthy growth of crops and other plants. So you must know the benefits. All right. But of course, now we know that the layer of greenhouse gases is becoming thicker. The concentration of greenhouse gases is increasing because of human activities. So let's find out more about that. Number 4, the cause of global warming. Gases such as carbon dioxide are naturally formed, but human activities through the years have caused the increase in the concentration of these gases. For example, burning of fossil fuels in factories and in vehicles like cars and buses and even aeroplanes, right? So this releases a lot of carbon dioxide in the air, which traps more heat energy. Okay, so more heat energy is trapped in the atmosphere by the layer of greenhouse gases as the concentration of the greenhouse gases increase. Now, you have to add the word more. Okay, the emphasis is on more because of the increase in the concentration of these gases. So if you don't write this word more in the essay, when you're comparing with the past conditions, then you may not get that mark. Okay, more. So which increases the temperature of the Earth, causing global warming. Okay, and this condition is called the greenhouse effect, right? So greenhouse effect leads to the global warming that leads to climate change, right? Now, if it comes out in the structured question, what is the greenhouse effect? Maybe 3 marks. Then you can summarize it as a process whereby heat energy is trapped in the atmosphere by what? By greenhouse gases. And give examples, carbon dioxide, methane. What is the effect of the greenhouse effect? So it will increase the Earth's temperature, causing global warming and then climate change. Okay, global warming leading to climate change. Here we see the drought occurring. Now, drought is spelled D-R-O-U-G-H-T, not D-R-A-U-G-H-T, not A, it's O. Okay, so make sure you spell the right spelling. D-R-O-U-G-H-T. So what are the factors causing the greenhouse effect? The main contributor is the burning of fossil fuels, which release a lot of carbon dioxide in the air and also nitrogen oxide, NOx, right, into the air. So fossil fuels like coal, petroleum, and diesel and natural gas, these are all called fossil fuels, are burnt by the power stations and factories to produce electricity and heat. All right. So when they are burnt in the power stations and factories, they will produce these gases. Now the power stations are the places which generate electricity for our homes, right? So the burning of fossil fuels in vehicles also, like cars, buses, and even aeroplanes, all right, for transport. All these also release the carbon dioxide and nitrogen oxide into the air. So this is the biggest source of greenhouse gases. And as WHO, the World Health Organization, has said, the burning of fossil fuels is killing mankind because of the release of these gases that cause climate change, global warming, and then climate change. Deforestation is the second factor. When trees or plants are cut down, they no longer absorb carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, so the carbon dioxide concentration in the air will increase. So nowadays, a lot of forests are cleared for agricultural use, or also to get the wood for construction, right? So these trees are actually our friends because they absorb carbon dioxide in the process, to carry out the process of photosynthesis. So when we cut them down, now the carbon dioxide cannot be absorbed, and the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air will increase. And when the trees are burnt, okay, sometimes the forests are burnt down, all right, then the burning of the trees also release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now, the third factor causing the greenhouse effect is animal farming. So which animal is it that produces the greenhouse gas, methane? Yes, it's the cow, right? Surprising as it is, cows are one of the main contributors to the greenhouse gases, because the cows, when they belch or burp, they release the gas methane from their mouth. Okay, so when they eat the grass, and the grass is being digested in the stomach, it produces all these gases, and then like methane, and then when they burp or belch, the gas will come up. Okay, and then another way is through the backside. Okay, when they pass gas, or kentut or fart, F-A-R-T. So students like to hear all this, and when I say shit also, some students are very happy. So the shit also is another contributor of the methane, because when it decomposes, it's decomposed by bacteria, it produces methane too. All right. So if there's only one cow, there won't be much methane produced. But because in the world today, many cows are reared for their milk and their meat. So a lot of methane is produced that goes up into the air, into the atmosphere, and then together with carbon dioxide, they absorb the heat and cause global warming. Okay. Fourthly, agricultural activities. The use of nitrogen fertilizers releases the gas nitrogen oxide. So textbook use the word nitrogen oxide, but actually if you check from reliable sources, it's a nitrous oxide, N2O. Check from the net. So, but in the exam, please use this term nitrogen oxide. If you want, you can write in brackets nitrous oxide, because marking scheme tends to follow the textbook. Okay, marking scheme for SPM. Okay, so we can use this term nitrogen oxide. All right. So the nitrogen fertilizers are, for example, ammonium nitrate. The nitrate there release the nitrogen oxide into the air after they are used in the soil. They are put in the soil. So this is also a greenhouse gas. Now, usage of cooling substances, that means the cooling agents in air conditioners and refrigerators, which contain chlorofluorocarbon or CFC, right? So chlorofluorocarbon is a chemical that is also a greenhouse gas, CFCl3. Okay. We have already studied the causes of the greenhouse effect. Now let's study the effects of global warming, which is caused by the greenhouse effect. The first effect is climate change, right? So climate change occurs where there are extreme weather conditions. For example, more droughts, heat waves, and floods. So some of these droughts are caused by the El Nino phenomenon. It's pronounced El Nino, and it means little boy, right? So this phenomenon phenomenon is an unusual occurrence. So this serious occurrence causes extreme hot and dry weather conditions, which results in drought, as seen here. So the drought, for example, in some places in Africa, when the drought occurs, it can last for a long time, sometimes for years, and it causes the ground to become very dry and cracked like this. And it's not suitable for cultivation of crops. So farmers can't grow anything here, and they will starve, right? And then there's a lack of water also, okay, because of this condition. So what is the El Nino phenomenon? It's actually a climate pattern that involves the unusual warming of the ocean waters, the surface waters of the ocean, and that is the Pacific Ocean, right? So it's known as the warm phase of the climate change, right? And that leads to droughts, where there's no water, no rainfall for long periods of time, okay? Now, in contrast, there's the La Nina phenomenon, pronounced La Nina. La Nina means little girl. So the La Nina phenomenon is related to the unusual cooling of the surface waters of the Pacific Ocean, just the opposite of El Nino, which involves the warming of the waters, the ocean waters. La Nina involves the cooling of the ocean waters, and this causes unusually heavy rain, which results in serious floods, as shown here, right? Where it can rain for long periods of time, and also the rain is very heavy, large amounts of rain falling down, and then after that, suddenly the flood will occur, right? And the flood can be very high, the waters, okay, until reaching the rooftop, as we have seen recently in our country also, in Malaysia. So La Nina phenomenon results in serious floods because of the heavy rain, whereas El Nino phenomenon results in dry weather conditions, very hot dry weather conditions, and a lack of rainfall, just the opposite. Okay, now to remember that these two and differentiate between them. Think of a girl, La Nina. So Nina is the name of a girl, right? So some girls, not all, some girls tend to cry easily, shedding floods of tears, floods. So tears are liquid, fluid. So it will help to remind you that it's related to the floods, and then El Nino is related to droughts here. Okay, right. So these are all extreme weather conditions caused by the global warming. Now, then there are also changes in wind direction that cause violent storms and typhoons, big typhoons to occur. So sometimes we hear the news, we hear in the news that a certain typhoon with a certain name is hitting a big city, and when it hits, it causes a lot of damage to the infrastructure, to the roads, bridges, and to the trees, uprooting trees, and even cause loss of many lives, right? This is also part of climate change, right? So next, glaciers and polar ice melt. Glaciers are moving bodies of ice up in the cold places like North Pole and South Pole. So scientists have noticed lately that these glaciers that were frozen for thousands of years, now they are melting, and chunks, big chunks of ice are falling down. So this tells us that the world is getting warmer and warmer. The earth is getting warmer and warmer. So when the polar ice and the glaciers melt, water will be released and it flows into the sea. This causes sea levels to rise, submerging the low-lying coastal areas in certain countries, and even submerging, covering islands, starting to cover islands. So certain islands may disappear in some decades, after some years, because of the rising sea levels. Then there's loss of habitats and food sources for flora, plants, and fauna, animals, leading to the death of these organisms and then extinction, right? So loss of habitats, because of what? Because of the drought, the floods, and the forest fires that occur. So these animals, the plants may be destroyed, and then the animals have to move away, and then they cannot find food, right? They have nowhere to live. So it can lead to death of organisms, and also if there's extinction of certain species of organisms, it can cause loss of biodiversity, which is there will be less species of plants and animals on the earth. Now, changes in the distribution of species of animals, for example, insects. So certain areas in the world will become warmer than normal already, because of the global warming, and this may be favorable for certain species of insects. Some may be carrying viruses or pathogens, like mosquitoes. So certain places may be more suitable for their survival, because the place may get warmer than usual, and so they may migrate there. So there are changes in the distribution of species of animals. Now, what are some ways to reduce the greenhouse effect and climate change? So global warming can be reduced by reducing the amount of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane that are released, right? So firstly, we try to reduce the burning of fossil fuels such as coal and petrol that release carbon dioxide into the air. And one way is to reduce or save electricity, because electricity is produced by the burning of coal or fossil fuels in the power stations, all right? And that releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This carbon dioxide will absorb the heat from the atmosphere and cause global warming. So we can use energy resources more efficiently. For example, carpool. So if, for example, a few students are going to the same school, then they can share the transportation there so that less cars are driven, and that will reduce the burning of petrol, right? So use LED, which are light emitting diode bulbs, which use 75% less energy than regular bulbs, and switch off fans, lights, and air conditioners when not needed. All this is to save electricity and reduce the burning of fossil fuels in the power stations. So note that we give the fact first, and then we have to explain why, to get extra marks, more marks. So fact and then explanation to reduce the burning of fossil fuels that release carbon dioxide. Now, secondly, use renewable sources of energy such as solar power and wind energy to replace fossil fuels. So renewable sources of energy are those sources that do not get depleted. And they do not pollute the earth, they do not release carbon dioxide, right? So they can reduce the amount of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere if they are used to replace the burning of fossil fuels. Thirdly, C, reduce waste by recycling. For example, recycling plastic bottles and aluminum cans. So when we recycle these items, actually to produce the new item through recycling uses less energy than if we were to produce these plastic bottles or aluminum cans right from the start, from the raw materials. So this will cut down on reduce the amount of energy needed to produce the items. So reduce deforestation, for example, reduce the conversion of rainforest to farmland. So when farmland is needed, sometimes they will destroy the rainforest or the forest, and they will cut down the trees and cause deforestation to occur, right? So we must reduce deforestation in order to preserve the trees, save the trees, so that the trees can be used to, more trees can be used to absorb carbon dioxide for photosynthesis and reduce the concentration of carbon dioxide in the air, okay, and reduce the greenhouse effect. Regenerate forests means plant more trees, or plant back the trees in the forests that have been destroyed. That may take time, but it will increase the number of trees that absorb carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. And then eat less meat. So eat less meat, what does it have to do with climate change? So it's very important. It has a lot to do with that, because as we found out, cows and other farm animals produce huge amounts of methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas. They produce the gas through burping and also through the back, right? So if there's less demand for meat, then maybe the farmers don't need to have so many cows. Won't have so many cows, right? And sometimes to prepare the land for the grazing of the cows, so that the cows can eat the grass, deforestation has to be carried out, often by setting fires. So firstly, there's destruction of trees, and there are fewer trees to absorb greenhouse gases, and by burning down the forests to prepare the farmland or the land for grazing, a lot of carbon dioxide is released into the air, okay, which is and carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, right? So these are some of the ways to reduce greenhouse effect and climate change.